Morrow, retired NYPD inspector, attorney, and a Fox News contributor. So the president talked to Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, earlier today. The president said it was a productive call. We have since heard a statement from the governor's office in which he says that the president agreed to allow the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension to play a role in the investigation of the death of Alex Preddy over the weekend. As well, he said the president said that he would consider reducing the number of federal troops on the streets of Minnesota if they could come to some sort of agreement on cooperation and coordination in turning over these violent offenders. Sounds like there's a little bit of progress there. Paul, how would you read it?
I would agree. However, the president has set out some very clear and definitive metrics relative to what constitutes, quote unquote, cooperation. And he starts with the demand, essentially, that those illegals who are in the custody of the Minnesota corrections system get turned over for deportation. I've seen no inclination from Tim Walz to do that. And that seems to be right, the sort of red line that the president is setting out right up front. I have a feeling that if that were to be done, Tim Walz would have just as much of a riot problem as he has right now. So I think there's some gamesmanship going on here. Let's see what this quote-unquote cooperation actually looks like.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. President Trump calling it a very good call. Governor Walz also issued his own statement following that phone call, saying that it was calling it productive. But he ends his, he ends his statement by saying this. I don't know if this is the same part. Okay, this is where he calls it a productive call with the president that he had earlier today. At the end of the statement, it reads, the governor reminded President Trump that the Minnesota Department of Corrections already honors federal detainers by notifying Immigration and Customs Enforcement when a person committed to its custody is not a U.S. citizen. There's not a single documented case of the department's releasing someone from state prison without offering to ensure a smooth transfer of custody. To your point, Paul, what does this say about, obviously, what the president is asking for and what Governor Walz says we're already doing?
If he were doing it, then there wouldn't be 1,300 that the federal government wants. And the fact that he made that statement, now you got to hold him to it. Because very clearly, from the federal government's perspective, that's not being done. That's, I'm sure, why they put that out as their first demand. And I think the reason that is their sort of top demand is because it's the one that plays the best in terms of optics. I think this is where you really get into an 80-20 issue federally, nationally, I should say. Because to the general public, the idea that people are being housed at our expense, at the expense of the Minnesota taxpayers, actually, that their care and feeding is coming out of the public trough while they're deportable, having committed felonies. I recognize if they're in state-level prison for a number of years there, they're convicted on felonies. These are not light crimes. So I think that's why it's an 80-20 issue, and I think that's why they're making that demand up front. As far as the other demands go, that is to say the police turning over people that are deportable immediately upon arrest, I really do not see Minnesota agreeing to that. They'll probably say things like, well, we got to wait for adjudication and conviction. So I think the devil's is in the details here. While they're both claiming progress, and it's positive that trying to ratchet it down, I am skeptical that they're going to be able to get all of this to work out anytime soon.
So, Paul, it's interesting to me that when Renee Good was shot, President Trump was fully in support of the agent who pulled the trigger. This time around, he seems to be hedging on any kind of a statement here, saying that, let's let the investigation continue. I don't know if that's an indication that he thinks there might have been a problem with this. I mean, what's your view of what happened?
I do think that you are seeing a little bit off of that press conference, a little bit of an air gap between the White House messaging and the messaging that came out in the immediate aftermath from DHS leadership in the Secretary Kristi Noem. Very clearly, the White House does not want to adopt some of the language that came out in the aftermath. I think one of the things that occurred is, let's remember that the first statements came out from Jacob Frey, who seems to have raced to the microphone, characterizing the shooting in all the worst terms well before any of the facts could possibly have been out. And I think that DHS maybe reacted to that a bit. The White House very clearly does not want to do that. Now, I don't know what that bodes for the situation on the ground there, especially with Holman incoming. What I do think is the following. If they're going to cooperate, they're going to have to be able to trust the locals. And so if they're going to say, okay, look, this thing is under investigation, we'll come out with the results when we have it very clearly, because right now, very clearly, there's a lot of conflicting narratives. But if they're going to get cooperation on the ground, they're going to have to be able to trust the Department of Safety there and the Minneapolis Police Department. And that comes down to whether or not they can trust those agencies not to leak to Ice Watch and the other activists that are there. That is the rub here, and I am not sure that the federal government is there on that.
All good points. Paul, thank you very much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.